Hello, everyone. This is Val Sada. I'm continuing our discussion on genetics and genomics and the ethics of genetics and genomics. This is a brief review of a couple case studies that we can review through nogenetics.org, and we'll talk through them quickly as we look at different ways of looking at ethics. So our first case is going to be this one, which is when informed consent is unclear. So a Native American tribe agreed to give blood samples to a local university research group in hopes that they could discover clues as to why this tribe suffered from high rates of diabetes. This tribe lives in an extremely isolated region. The people have a high degree of shared ancestry, and there is minimal immigration into the area, leading to a gene pool that is largely stagnant, meaning new versions of genes are rarely introduced. In this particular tribe, blood has a significant spiritual importance. The tribe eventually learns that the samples they had provided were used for more than the intended diabetes study. When the researchers were unable to find any genetic link to diabetes in the tribe, they turned to other questions. In fact, the university researchers were using the samples to study the genetic underpinnings of mental illness and the tribe's geographical origins. When the tribe found out how their samples were actually being used, they were outraged. Although members of the tribe had signed a consent allowing their samples to be used for wider-ranging genetic studies, they maintained that they verbally agreed only to the diabetes research. In fact, the informed consent document was deliberately simpler than is typical because many in the tribe are barely literate. The tribe asked the university for monetary restitution for what they perceived to be a deliberate misrepresentation of the intentions of the researchers. The university maintains it was an honest mistake, and technically they did nothing wrong based on the informed consent document signed by the tribe. So the question that we need to answer is, should the university compensate the tribe? So when you look at the information above, there's a couple areas that should have raised a few red flags for you. The first, the tribe lives in an extremely isolated region. What that means is that there is minimal people coming in and out of the environment. So I would wonder right there whether or not they were even familiar with genetic testing. The second big red flag to you is the nurse should have been that the blood had a significant spiritual importance, and that should have brought with it some preparation of the tribe for how the blood was actually going to be used. And if the tribe's perception was it was just being used for diabetes research, then that's what should have been done. When the researchers were unable to find any genetic link, they turned to other questions. In other words, the university took upon themselves to move forward without consulting the tribe. Although they did have a written consent, one of the fourth red flags should have been that many members of the tribe possibly were illiterate or had low reading levels, and the document was created more simply than is typical, so they were treated differently in their consent opportunity. And so for us, was that fair and equitable? That would have been the ethical question that we should have looked at there. The university maintains it was an honest mistake, and technically they did nothing wrong based on the informed consent. So the university felt that the informed consent was adequate. Legally, that may have been adequate, but we talked about the importance of legal or laws being not always sufficient to be ethically correct. So let's pick the answer yes, based on our concerns, and see how many other people voted. So this was an actual real story, and most of the people that did the poll did agree that they should have been compensated for this particular violation of consent. So let's do one more so that you can see how these particular case studies can be used. Using fetal DNA for gender selection. Dexter and Susan are the parents of 4 healthy girls. During all 4 pregnancies, they had ultrasounds performed during the 20th week of pregnancy to determine the gender of the baby. Susan is pregnant again, and she and Dexter want to learn the gender of the newest addition to their family. They've heard about new technology that will determine the sex of the baby from a blood test based on tiny pieces of fetal DNA that are circulating in the maternal blood supply. The test can be performed as early as the 7th week of pregnancy. Dexter and Susan make an appointment with their obstetrician to ask about the test. Their OB recalls that the couple had been hoping for a boy during the last 3 pregnancies and is surprised that Susan is pregnant again. While asking about the gender test, Susan seems uncomfortable and looks at the floor a lot. Their doctor begins to suspect that they want the early gender test in order to terminate the pregnancy if it is another girl. When pressed, Dexter and Susan deny that this is their intention, but their doctor is not convinced. If you were their doctor, what would you do? So we have multiple issues here. First, clearly this is a family that's had significant success in being pregnant and delivering healthy pregnant to term. So we know that there is really no medical reason other than unspoken reasons from the couple that they might want this particular test done. There is some value depending on their culture and spiritual and ethnic beliefs about the gender of a baby. If they're in a culture that values the male baby over female babies, that could be a significant finding here. Again, the OB recalled that the couple had been hoping for a boy and that Susan is pregnant again. Really what we're getting at here is the fetus and who owns the fetus and how the fetus is managed and part of a parental experience. And this can be incredibly complex. And I think that religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, ethnicity, culture, population, values, and virtues are all in consideration in this particular discussion. So let's say that this physician decides to provide the test, and we'll vote and see. So 69% of people did vote to provide the test. It wasn't up to the doctor to pass the moral judgment, are within their rights to plan their family as they see fit. The second one is do not provide the test, with only 31% of people voting for that particular option. So I find it interesting because this could be actually driven by the people that are answering the question, because I do wonder if it was outside the United States, what different or perhaps the same results we would get. So again, these are complex ethical dilemmas. Again, looking at the framework and looking at all the different ethical ways of looking at a question, this would require a substantial review. And hopefully a selection and decision between the doctor and the family could be made, protecting everyone's ethical beliefs. So we've come to the end of this particular portion of our module number 3. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Again, The only assignment in this particular module is really around your family health history. So best of luck, and we'll talk to you in class. Thanks.